I'm joined by Tanko Zakaria Musah. He's a lawyer. Yes, he's that legal brain that I was speaking to earlier on, as well a lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Our legal friend.
Good to see you, Visa. You're looking good.
So, how do you say it? Our learned friend.
Learned friend, yeah.
Our learned friend. Good to see you as well.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope the weekend was good.
It was lovely.
Lovely. Thank God. All right, so let's kick start with security issues, shall we?
Yeah.
So security is still big, though we don't see too much of that in the papers today. I see one paper where Major Budu Kwanza.
Yeah, I think the
unique, is it UT, the UT bank?
Yeah, who was,
yeah. So he says that, look, we have to fight these robbers. And he has actually declared war.
Boot for boot.
You know, I don't know if this is the way to go, but what do you make of these comments?
Well, understandably, when you are faced with a sort of audacious robbery that we have witnessed recently, and looking at the antecedents of Ghana, in terms of Ghana being a stable country and people having hailed us for quite a long time, then all of a sudden we are faced with this uncharacteristic fashion of crime in the country. Naturally, people would be a bit emotional and want to find a solution to it. And the solution doesn't have to be cosmetic. It has to be a very profound and long-lasting solution. So you could understand how some of these suggestions would be coming in. But for me, I think that we need to look at these things both in the short term and then the long-term solution to it. Some have argued that, well, taking them on boot for boot might not necessarily be the best way of resolving the issue, because in doing so, you end up, involving yourself in some excesses and disproportionality. And once you do that, then invariably, you also end up being on the spotlight of the international community in terms of the way you go about your rule of law. Because one of the things we have adopted for ourselves is democracy, and one of the hallmarks of democracy is that irrespective of what the person has done, you need to try as much as possible, if it is very possible, to allow due process to deal with that person. Now, some have also said that, well, we could actually have a blend of the boot for boot and then look at other ways of why are we not looking at the preventative, and you can achieve preventative security resolution by working holistically. So it's not just the responsibility of the security agencies. What role is the members of the public playing? What role are the other agencies playing? What effort are we collectively putting in to ensure that these things don't happen? I was really satisfied when I heard this morning that it looks like there is some attempt to recruit some civilians to do some sort of community work with the police service. They need to be informed. They need to be provided with intelligence right from the local communities and all those things. But I think that this is not a usual situation, and when you find yourself in an unusual situation, sometimes you may have to look at a very radical and very creative ways of dealing with this situation. But certainly we are in a situation that calls for a concerted effort to deal with that, and I think that the police are really upping their game. I was satisfied on Thursday when I was driving down the TV3 route, and I saw a police vehicle. They just basically stopped the taxi, and what they saw was that they saw some guys in the taxi. Probably they might have picked some intelligence, and you could see them there and there searching them and all those things. Now, one of the catastrophes of such situation is that invariably people would be profiled. So certain characteristics of people, if you look rough, maybe rust with some, men piercing and all those things, you'll be profiled as probably a potential criminal. But that's the unfortunate thing. But once that is done and they accost you and they do whatever interrogations they have to do and you are really clean, they would let you go. But I saw those things and I thought, wow, then the police is really acting very swiftly. Now the ball has to now shift slightly onto the members of the public to also consistently be providing the information. Now, I mean, there are some concerns as to whether if you provide this intelligence to the police, how are you sure that this intelligence will not get back to the very people you are trying to expose? And those are things that the police would have to up their professionalism. And I think that looking at the last few years, we have moved away from that situation where people go to the police and disclose information in confidence, and then they have ended up being the target of the criminals. I think the police have moved up from there, but there's still more room for improvement when it comes to that. But certainly, the security situation requires a situation that is beyond the normal.
I will be surprised if indeed the category of people that you mentioned are those people only, the police will be focusing their attention on. That would be a clear case of discrimination. But obviously the random checks very important, so we're able to pick up one or two information that will help. But we know as well that today the president is set to meet the security chiefs. What do you think should be his reaction in the midst or in the face of all of these attacks that we've seen?
Well, understandably, as the chief executive of the country, our security, he has to guarantee us and assure us our security, and he could do it alone. So he has delegated certain responsibilities to the security operatives. And so the first thing I would expect him to do is to get some briefing from them. I mean, I'm sure he might have been briefed wherever he is, but he will have to get a first-hand briefing from them in terms of where we are now and what mechanisms have been put in place and how adequate and sufficient those mechanisms are. And he has to also get some sort of assurance from them, because once he gets that assurance from them, then he can assure the good people of Ghana that, see, we are on top of your security. But clearly, this is not business as usual, and I don't think the president should take this very lightly at all. He needs to ask very difficult questions. Some of the things that clearly, if it borders on recklessness or negligence, he needs to make sure the right things are being done and ask the right questions. And if punishment has to be made, people who are not doing their work properly have to be punished. But at this stage, I think he will have to take in a lot of information, find out what has gone wrong, what is it that is making this sort of attacks very rampant now, and what intelligence have they picked in terms of what is encouraging and emboldening these armed robbers, and what can he as a president immediately, because the solution sometimes might be long term, but there are medium and immediate solutions to the problem, and the president cannot provide those things until those who he has delegated to do these things provide him with the necessary information. So I think that the meeting is basically to capture what the intelligence is and see how best he could work with them to resolve this problem.
All right. Well, we'll speak to a lot more security issues, including the reshuffling that we saw, which one of the papers this morning is actually stating that the police has been clarifying, that shake-up in the police command. But in the Free Press, earlier on I referred to the UT partner, Captain Budukumsen, or Captain Budukumsen is the name. He as well is a retired chief army officer, and has called on government to allow security agencies use brute force in dealing with the situation. And quoting him, he says that it is war, and war is not pleasant. They have declared war on us. Professionalism does not mean cowardice or treating people with kids' gloves. Let's give them the space to deal with this thing radically. And here is Captain Budukumsen, speaking in this report. All right, so I'm joined by my second guest, Shamima Muslim Al Hassan. She's the convener, Alliance for Women in Media. Okay, a group that I'm supposed to be a part of. You are a part of it. Yes, Sissy. It's a pleasure to have you on our platform. It's an honor to be here. Good to see you. Looking good. You're looking very
Fly yourself.
Oh my goodness. Please forgive us.
No, I'm okay with that. I'm just enjoying the...
I like you forgive us.
My lecture.
I know. We've been talking about you.
Oh, okay.
Gossiping.
Oh, gossiping about me, right?
Pleasant.
Good thing.
Pleasant gossip, yeah.
Sham, you're welcome once again to the show. So we're
thank
talking
you.
security issues, which is so big. I mean, really. I think we were speaking about the fact that the president this morning is meeting all of the security chiefs, and I was asking Tanko exactly what he thinks that the president's reaction should be, considering the attacks that we have seen the past couple of days.
Well, good morning once again to you and to all your viewers. Security is very hard now for the progress of every situation. In fact, if you look at the SDG 16, we are talking about promoting peaceful and inclusive societies, promoting access to justice for all citizens, and also protection of rights and liberties of citizens. And the president also happens to be a champion for the Sustainable Development Goals, aspirational as they are, but they are real in terms of the effects, if we're able to operationalize these goals, would have on our societies. So security is very, very important, and the perception of insecurity is even more deadly than actual insecurity. So whether or not the statistics are worrying or not, people will think that, oh, maybe there's an exaggeration. The media is focusing excessively on security issues, but one life lost to, an armed attack is one life too many. So the president has to be concerned. We've seen him around the world doing a lot of good things. He seems to have quite a lot of goodwill, I would say, globally. He's speaking to audiences, and he's spreading a certain message about our continent and Ghana. And it's a good message, no matter how, from which side you start. It's a good message. But if back home, your citizens are not focusing on these things that you're saying to global audiences about how Ghana is ready for business, how it's a travesty that we sit on arguably the richest continent on this earth and yet we are poor, how it is unconscionable that we should be primary producers of raw materials and we still get the short end of the stick in terms of the revenues accruing therefore. These are great messages, how we really want a Ghana beyond aid, why we need to be equal partners in the development. They are great messages, but these messages will come to naught if back home people feel threatened and fearful, even in their own homes. The psychology of feeling very fearful in your own home, the one place that you should feel most secured in, let alone walking in the streets with all these daylight robbery and hijacking and killing, So the president has to be worried, very worried, because if he doesn't get this right, it's going to affect every other thing that he does. Of course. And so he really must be firm on his security agencies. They have to give him a true account of our general situation, what the challenges are. If it's with capacity, they must let the president know. If it's a capacity in terms of resources, even if it's human capacity, perhaps leaders who are leading the security fight are not up to the task. They have to be able to confront that if they need to go for some studies to upgrade their knowledge in intelligence gathering. Other nations, intelligence really helps, the security agencies track down activities of criminals and gangs and what have you. And if we are not having that, if we can't troubleshoot some of these situations, if the informant system is not working, we have BNI operatives, plain clothes who are supposed to be everywhere. What are they doing? What kind of intelligence are they bringing back to their directors, and how are they acting on such intelligence? How is it that the criminals are a step ahead of us? I mean, it's in human institutions. People will always try to outbid the system. So you are supposed to be on top of issues. So they have a lot of work to do, and they have to start like yesterday.
What do you make, though, of actions that we've seen taken following last week's events?
Well,
so we saw the shake-up in the police command. We saw the military police, collaboration, which is not the first time we have seen this happen. I mean, what do you make of it?
If there's inadequate human resource on the field, I don't have any problem with the military, police, collaboration. And it seems that citizens are generally fearful of the army more than they are of the police. Perhaps we also want to send a certain message to those who might be willing or harboring any intent at all to become miscreants, to know that there's presence on the ground. The shake-up, like I agree with other security experts who have said, it's come a little bit too late.
Well, some say it is unnecessary.
It's even unnecessary because perhaps, well, maybe not unnecessary. We don't know what reviews they have done. I mean, the president has done some evaluation of his ministers we hope we'll see some results announced as a result of that evaluation. If the security agencies had been doing such review, which they haven't communicated to us, and we only see this massive shake-up only after this spate of armed robberies, then we will think that is a knee-jerk reaction. Okay, because we want to wonder what kinds of reviews have they done within this short period, and to find that some people are not living up to, are they not living up to expectation? What's the reason for the reshuffling? But if they think this is going to deliver security, all well and good. I mean, if the methods would deliver the end, all citizens want is feelings of security as they move about. It's already hard as it is, people trying to eke out a living in this very hard Ghana. Money is very difficult to come by. And the last thing we want is to be frustrated by fear. And then, being robbed of the little that we make.
I just wanted to quickly on the reshuffling. Yes, and Shamima mentioned earlier on about the psychology aspect of it. It might not necessarily achieve a bigger resource, but sometimes just doing a quick reshuffle tactically might send a signal that, okay, listen, the command structure you are so comfortable with has changed, and you never know what is going to happen. So it might have some psychological blow onto the robbers, but it is not really a long-term solution.
Shouldn't the IGP be gone by now? I mean, especially now that he's gone past his retirement age, for instance. We know we've given him an extension. If he can't do the job, he can't do the job. Shouldn't he?
But that's why I said earlier on that when the president meets the security, those in charge of the security, these are very honest and dispassionate discussions that they should have. And if there is any evidence to suggest that, and Shamima alluded to that, if there is any evidence to suggest that the people who are at the helm of affairs, there is some sort of incompetence or negligence or recklessness, clearly we need to move away from that situation where we just don't want to move people away. I mean, we need to be able to move people away. If you look at the attempt by the police to say, well, this reshuffle has nothing to do with the current, I think it is really unnecessary. Because, frankly, if you think it has nothing to do with this, then the timing is very inappropriate then. Because if you do the reshuffle at this time, and you are telling people that we shouldn't believe it has something to do with that. But I can understand why they're doing that, because indirectly, that reshuffle is suggesting that those who were there before, if they admit that it was because of this incident, then indirectly you are admitting that those who were there before have failed, and that's why we're moving them. If they have failed, then something has to be done.
And as we wrap up on security, I know that we can go on and on with security, because, I mean, without that, we can't do anything as a country. At what point can we actually say confidently that Ghana is safe, that I am safe, that you're safe? At what point? Just briefly.
What I want to say that at the point at which we are delivering economic goods to the majority of the citizens, because you see, at the helm of crime is economics. And even global institutions have identified and recognized that the greatest threat to Africa's security is the youth unemployment situation, because Africa, as we speak today, has the most youthful populations. 10 of the youngest countries of the world are in Africa. And we're talking young people between the ages of 14 to 25 who are either low-skilled, unemployed, and they just do not have any income sources. And if people are hungry, as I said at another forum, if they are hungry, if they are angry, it's a lethal combination. It's a disaster waiting to happen. That's why Dr. Kwesi is saying that this is just going to get worse. Indeed. So if we don't stem the tide of corruption and use these resources to ensure that we are providing the necessary, opportunities for young people, whether they are skilled or not, because you cannot afford not to engage your young populations. And again, it's said that if we don't do this in the next couple of years, it's really going to be a major problem for the African continent. So let us focus on the things that are relevant to do, provide opportunities for young people, give them employment, give them skills to be able to contribute. In fact, we stand to gain about $500 billion from our young people on the continent if we put them to work over the next 30 years. Annually, 500 billion, because these are young people. They just need the skills.
We have a long way to go.
Opportunities. We do.
We do have a long way, and we're wrapping up on security. Please, your final words.
Well, I mean, for me, we need to be able to get to that stage where these sort of incidents are just an exception, because, see, you cannot guarantee a crime-free society, irrespective of how much security operations you put in place. But you have to get to a stage where people will go about their business freely without having to look over their shoulders, and that when there is crime at all, it would be an exception. And when it happens, it would be dealt with swiftly and quite drastically according to the law, so that people would feel confident and comfortable to go about doing their business.
All right, and a quick one. Good morning. A brother of mine was killed on the Watumu Road. He was attacked the first time, and everything on him was taken from him. And unfortunately, he knew one of the robbers. So he came, made a complaint to the police. In 1 week, he was going back to Tumu and was shot dead. According to friends in the car, the armed robber, after shooting, told him that if you go and come back, go again and report. Because of this, we are living with criminals, but afraid to report them. And this coming from Rex in Wa. This is a rather sad situation.
And Wa is my hometown, actually.
I know.
Yeah.
And that was what I alluded to earlier on, about people having the confidence to go and disclose information to the police and feel secure. Now, if we don't handle those sort of things, then because the security cannot fight this alone. They need the intelligence of everybody. But if I'm going to divulge information to you and end up probably being the target, then I might as well not do it.
And that's why the whistleblowers law is really not working. People are really not using it.
Whew, listen, I still want to hear from you on the issue of security. Exactly, what is the situation with you? Are you beginning to at least feel a bit safer where you are? Share with us on all our social media platforms. Let's move on now to some other stories. So page 16 of today's edition of the Daily Graphic, Rawlings advocates 2 5-year terms for president. And indeed, this is not the first time that this call has come through. Former President Kufuor made a similar call. And I'm tempted to ask the question, do the merits of their call make sense at this point? Let me start with Lawyer Tanko.
See, you rightly pointed out that this is not the first time we are hearing this. And when it first came, it didn't just come from anybody at all. It came from somebody who had been there before and has a first-hand experience of the situation.
Per the reports, though, before you go ahead, President Rawlings says that from experience, this is what I'm beginning to feel, that if indeed we are able to review it upwards, just a year more, every government will be able to deliver on exactly what projects that they're supposed to undertake.
Well, but that's the point. I disagree with him. If he says that just by providing an additional year, that would guarantee the delivery, I think that is all about getting our priorities right and having a policy in place. You see, the problem, the challenge we have is that we spend so many years. See, the first year of every government is spent engaging in who did what did we find, and all those things. We spend that, and then the second year, I mean, you're trying to put together a team and all those things. So frankly, and then the last year of the government is spent campaigning. So I mean, if you look at it, we only have 1 full year to do something. So if we can move away from that and probably, instead of thinking about pushing the years, rather come out with a legislation probably that would limit what you would do when you can start campaigning and all those things, that would help. But I think that coming from two former presidents now, I think it's about time we look at it probably. And I think instead of, we may probably have to move it from the political arena and see if we can bring in people from the academia to also do an empirical research to find out whether truly, if we add some years to the existing one, is it really going to make any major difference, or is it just going to be a cosmetic increase? I have heard people argue that, okay, why not just 6 years, one term for you and you're gone. I've heard that as well. But these are all suggestions that we can engage with as citizens. And if we think that there is some positive outcomes in it for us, then we might by all means put our heads together. Because ultimately, governance is not just for governance sake. You are there to come and bring positive results. But if they have been there and they realize that, oh, if I had an additional year, I could have done more than I did, then, I mean, let's engage with that. Thankfully, it's not a situation where we were saying that they're trying to take advantage of the situation. If they wouldn't benefit from it directly in any shape or form. So I think we shouldn't just throw it away, but I think we shouldn't also just jump to it and say, yes, let's do it. Let's interrogate it properly and see.
I mean, over the weekend we saw President Trump praising the Chinese leader over his move to end the presidential term. He's actually thinking about it. Well, I don't know. So I believe that world leaders probably are beginning to think, okay, maybe if we move it, a bit, forward, we could begin to see things more clearly.
The fact is that there's merit in longevity.
Yes.
And it is true that if you have uninterrupted governance over a period of time with the right kind of leaders, you can actually, within a generation, turn around the fortunes of your nation. China is an example that it is possible for a nation at the lowest level to build itself up within a generation or two and become a world power. Only if they have uninterrupted, governance. I beg your pardon. Singapore is also an example of how longevity. Why am I making longevity? Who is even giving me problems?
Right.
You didn't have cocoa this morning.
I'm suspecting the toothpaste that you use, but I'm not going to mention it.
Singapore is an example that they've managed to do that without uninterrupted, governance system. Unfortunately, we lost that opportunity, and you could agree with the former President Rawlings, but you can also ask him when he had uninterrupted leadership for 19 years or so, the longest serving president Ghana has done. We can't say we have truly seen a transformation of our economy under, the 19 years. We made strides and we made gains and we saw positives, but our country has not been transformed. And it's the transformation agenda that every president has been speaking about, a country where we can maximize our resources and ensure that our citizens live a decent life with decent access to the basic social services. You wake up and you turn your light on and it's on. You turn on your tap and there's water. You walk to your hospital and you get quality health care. These things we still haven't, made. And I'm saying that it is very basic to continue to say that, oh, but we have made strides, we've made strides. If you do a comparison of where you are today compared to countries that you started off with and what they have managed to achieve for themselves, even without the kinds of resources that you had, you can't say we should tap you on your back. And that's where sometimes I say that our leaders have failed us quite monumentally. We could have done more with what we had. We didn't. And if today, upon sober reflection, these former presidents think that we deserve to increase our term of office since we have moved into a democracy, and that's really one of the criticisms of democracy, that it gives you short tenure and you're really unable to operationalize your plan. But you see, because human societies evolve, you can't fully operationalize your plans. And that's why politicians are hardly ever able to fulfill all the promises they give to us, knowing what tenure they have anyway. So it isn't that we should deceive ourselves as citizens into thinking that once we increase a tenure by another year, it means necessarily that politicians will be able to fulfill all of their very great, flowery promises. But there's something to be said of the fact that we are too, our nation is always in a political cycle. We're always thinking the next election. And it is true that it takes some time to put a team together. But the fact is, if you're a leader in waiting, there are a number of things that you should have been prepared. I ever sat in a training by Professor Stephen Adai in Jimpa years ago in my 20s. And he said that the difference between leaders and rebels is that rebels often come in without a plan, and you're hoping that leaders come in with a well thought out plan. Okay, so they don't have to take so long to assemble a team together, especially if you tout that you have the men. And if they really are up to the task, they should really, and have some governance experience. We shouldn't repeat, you know, it shouldn't take us too long, especially if we have a proper public service system with proper institutional memory, because the civil servants, they are there for long. So you as a minister, you're coming in with a new vision, with a new energy, with a new direction. People should be able to come on board as quickly as, you know, we expect them to be. But unfortunately, this is really not the case, because we have politicized every sector of our society, and politics is so insidious, and it's really debilitating our progress rather than, you know, improving it. So sometimes I don't think
listen to Shamima. It should be more about quality of governance and probably not the limits that we're engaging in now. Because undoubtedly, and I agree with you, undoubtedly, governance situation in this country has been a mess.
Yeah, but you see, this is because, you see, governance is a continuous. It's a continuous exercise. And because of the way we have politicized almost everything, even our policy, our national agenda, everything is politicized. Otherwise, it shouldn't be a problem. Once your tenure comes and you go, you would have left some sort of a benchmark, a roadmap. So the other party comes, although they might probably have a different ideology, but it has to feed into the national policy, and then we work with it. And she was right when she talked about the former president having an uninterrupted 19 years. And people have argued that that was the period where you didn't even have these restrictions that democracy comes with. Because frankly, when you are operating in a democratic system, you cannot have the free hand to do whatever you want to do. But in a democracy, there are some limitations where people have the right to go and challenge certain decisions. We had that 19 years of uninterrupted governance system, and yet what did we do? So for me, we need to look at it holistically and really see whether is there any merit in that, or it's just one of those cosmetic requirements that we need. But if we don't move away from this situation, and unfortunately these two political parties, and whether we like it or not, they would continue to dominate our political landscape for a long time. So that's why they have no excuse to come into.
Why should we allow?
Because you see, the problem with third parties is that even in the advanced democracies where it has been established, you hardly have a third party. At best, what they can do is to come and push for a hung parliament or stuff like that. Because the human psyche is just, we just like to choose between this or that. But we have to develop a third party to the extent that these two political parties cannot be taken as for granted anymore. Because they have no excuse. You can't tell me, if you are in opposition now, NDC, you cannot tell me that when you come to power, now you are now trying to put everything together. So on what basis were you telling us that you are a government in waiting? The NPP did that when they were in opposition. So for me, it all boils down to the willpower and then the enthusiasm and the leadership that our political actors are providing.
The first president of Ghana, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, also proved to us that it is possible to make great strides within 6 years.
Indeed.
Right? And his legacy still lives on.
Indeed.
So it means it's really a blot on the leaders that we have had, because we have had a leader who has had a great footprint on this nation, which still we benefit from up to date. So what's your legacy? What are you leaving behind? What huge landmarks are you leaving behind? So we can have a conversation, but you see, the problem is that we are a nation that we hardly ever follow through anything. We did a constitution review exercise. These recommendations were made because there were recommendations to extend this tenure. What has happened to the constitution review exercise? Because these ideas cannot be operationalized without the necessary constitutional reviews and amendments. So if we really mean what we mean, instead of just always engaging in talk shops, can we at least put it to test And if at least by the end of 5 years, I'm actually open to that idea. Really, I'm not against it, but I'm just saying that it is not foolproof that an extension will necessarily deliver any goods, you know, than we currently see. But there's some logic to the extent that the way that we organize our elections and how we behave after winning or losing an election, maybe another year can help consolidate, you know, gains.
So for you, we haven't performed well enough or even shown enough promise to merit this extension, if you like.
Well, the evidence hasn't been demonstrated. We need, you see, we can't just stand up and say we need to do that. I mean, this is the difference between us and certain parts of the world, where before they introduce such things, before they make such recommendations, it would be backed with some empirical evidence to say that, listen, if you do A, B, C, D, this is the benefits you're going to have. So that people would interrogate that and say, okay, let's consider that. But we just can't stand up and say, well, experience is very important, but personal experiences doesn't necessarily translate into the national benefit per se. So let's have some sort of evidence to suggest that, okay, when you do this, it's going to impact on us positively. In the absence of that, I think people would say that, well, it is something that you cannot necessarily demonstrate that is going to bring us any benefit.
Let's put it to vote. I mean, let's see, the constitution is there, the recommendations are there. Let's see what the citizens think. And if they agree, let's operationalize it. And then let's see how we monitor progress. At least by 5 years, if they are monumental failure, it might break this jinx of saying that, you know, Ghana, we give every party a 2-term, whatever. Maybe if it's now 5 years, and within that 5 years, you haven't shown any serious progress, then we'll kick you out.
But you see, how do you achieve that when you haven't dealt with the fundamental problem in terms of the political literacy of our people? You know, we are saying that we are making progress, but trust me, it's the same ball game. People who are supposed to punish the politicians because they fail to do A, B, C, D, they don't look at some of these things. Come election time, people go to the people, and then all they do is, hey, and they go and vote for the people. So we need to look beyond some of these things and open up.
NCCE needs to up its game.
Thank you. And I know they're watching, so thank you. Just a quick message, and Peter is asking, okay, you actually said that it's very easy to criticize people when you are not the one leading, and you're asking that we ask the Vice President if indeed the security issues and the hardships that we're facing in the country now is a word that I guess I would want to keep under wraps for now. Peter, thank you for that message. You want to send another one? You know, be more civil and nice about it. Yeah. Thank you, though. You share your own, you know, thoughts with us as well on the issues that we've discussed. Indeed, we early on spoke to the issue of security. We've touched on the advocacy of a further term, you know, presidential term, if you like, and this coming from former President Jerry John Rawlings. We've heard former President Kufuor as well made this call, and a few other people have made a few suggestions. What are your own thoughts? You know, I had wanted us to tie in the police package, reviewed package, and of course the posthumous promotion for the Inspector Ashilevi.
Being promoted to ASP.
Yes, I want to tie that in with the security conversation. I don't know why that escaped me, but let's briefly touch on it. So now we see an upward review, you know, of how do I call it, packages for police personnel while they are out of office. In this case, I think it was a total of 185,000 Ghana cedis, for instance, that was released to the inspector's family. He as well has been posthumously promoted to the position of Assistant Superintendent of Police. He was a Chief Inspector when the sad incident occurred. And we've had viewers asking questions as to why we wait till they're gone before we do that. Kavwe and I were trying to give some responses. I want to pick your thoughts briefly.
See, there is merit in the issue about why do we wait till they have gone. Now, if you talk to people in the police service, I mean, these are not things they can say openly, but in terms of the promotion, there is a lot of delays. in the promotions and all those things, and it leads to frustrations and all those things. So that is one issue that the police may have to look at. I mean, when people's promotion is due, it has to be done in a timely manner. But in terms of the promotion after it's gone, this is also very, 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 very good, because it sends out some signal that you didn't just die in vain. And all these things that the police is doing is very, very important, because the morale of the people in whose hands our security is, it should be boosted up. It is very, very, very important, because I mean, if you talk to some police officers, they will tell you that, hey, Musah, and those sort of things. So I mean, if you have these people thinking this way, then clearly it becomes a problem. So yes, I mean, some people's line of duty it requires that maybe you may die in defending your country and your people, but if you die, I mean, we are not saying that that is what we all wish for, but if it happens, inevitably, if it does happen, what did you die in vain? You've left children. What is going to happen to those children and all those things? If I see my colleague police officer die, and then I see his family basically in almost in a destitute situation, what is that going to tell me? Would I then want to take on some of these robbers and die as a result of that? I wouldn't do that. So I think it's a step in the right direction. But the police administration need to look at this issue about promotion. I think when people's promotion is due, they need to do it. But then they will tell you that, well, when you promote, it comes with additional financial burden and all those things. And therefore, if you promote the people and you haven't been given the clearance, maybe from the Ministry of Finance and all those things, what is going to happen? But I think this is what we need to look at. And if we really, really want our police to put up the best, to work with confidence and morale hub, we need to look at some of these things and do more than we are doing now.
All right, Sham, please wrap up for me.
This is what I was talking about, the NCC needing to up its game. Patriotism, it's dying, and we all have to agree. People don't feel this burning desire anymore to die for their country. And who wants to really die for a country that doesn't celebrate or recognize or protect them the way that they, you know, they think they deserve to be protected? So we need to bring back patriotism and the study of it. Tomorrow is Independence Day. You know, our national anthem and the words that we speak, they are really critical. And for the security agencies, anyone who dies for his or her country in the line of duty is a martyr, is a hero. And you know, it's as simple as that. We can't take anything, no matter what your level is or has been in the army. You are a hero. You died in the line of duty protecting your nation, and that nation deserves to recognize that. So we need to commend the police administration. But you see, these are all reflections for the failure of from us implementing the single spine salary structure. When we started the SSSS, it increased salaries. But I heard, I mean, severally I spoke to Dr. Indum, who was one of the key, you know, proponents of the single spine salary structure. And he spoke, you see, it was just not about increasing salaries. There were other things we were supposed to do to reform the public service and all of these other allied institutions. And we need to go back to that. We need to go back to the resource element. We need to go back to the clear-cut protocols and guidelines for operationalizing some of these things, so that people will just obey the laws and not use their positions to discriminate or, you know, prevent people from attaining what is rightfully theirs.
All right, Shamima Muslim Al Hassan, she is convener Alliance for Women in Media.
Yep.
And then
Africa,
of course,
Alma.
yes,
and it's Women's
Tanko.
Month.
Of course,
you
I was
forgot
going to
to
go
speak
there.
to
And
how active
Tanko
is she?
Zakaria, as well as a lawyer and a lecturer at GIJ. And not only in this month that we're celebrating Ghana, as well we're celebrating women. So in this next conversation, we're looking at advancing gender equality and empowerment among women. Yes, the gender minister is in the studio, and she'll be sitting with Kafri Day.
Right.
The Ghana International Trade Fair is back again. From the 28th February to the 7th of March 2018, the Ghana Trade Fair Company will be hosting over 500 exhibitors from all over the world for the 22nd International Trade Fair at the Ghana Trade Fair Center, La Accra. Come and have quality entertainment while you network to develop your business. Activities lined up for the 22nd International Trade Fair: Wednesday, 28th February, opening ceremony; Thursday, 1st March, Regional Day celebration; Friday, 2nd March, High Life Night; Saturday, the 3rd of March, Country Day celebration; Sunday, 4th March, Food Fair and CEO's Cooking Competition; Monday, the 5th of March, Cocoa Day and Intomadan. Then on the 6th of March, the biggest outdoor concerts. Come and enjoy your favorite local Ghanaian dishes at the Food Fair while you listen to evergreen high life music at the Beer Festival on weekends and holidays. The Kids Corner will give our children a treat with their favorite cotton candy, ice cream, bouncy castle, swimming pool, face painting, and many more. Be part of the 22nd International Trade Fair. Join us from the 28th to the 7th of March at the Ghana Trade Fair Center as we trade and network in style and entertainment under the theme Industrializing Ghana and Creating Jobs. The program is brought to you by the Ghana Trade Fair Company in partnership with the Ministry of Trade, One District, One Factory, and EIB Network.
I come pase Rijoko I am otopa Nedane yasunkopa Rijoko the end day I'm away to media ya drink kobo ati Rijoko I come to Rijoko Nedane yasunkopa for new card be Rijoko journey ayo kama ankasa na asanso ayemotopa Rijoko Nedane yasunkopa yi.
The story of love, betrayal, and revenge gets more intriguing and exciting. When a man's heart is bent on a brutal revenge, it surely becomes his sin and weakness, especially when it involves the woman he loves.
How about my brother Rafael? Why isn't he as lucky?
Listen, what on earth does Rafael have to do with this, Geronimo? Explain to me, because I don't understand. I don't understand why your life has to depend on your dead brother. Carlos, I didn't even know Rafael. How else would I know La Bonita? Listen, I didn't know his brother, even in a photograph. I don't know. Do you have a picture of him?
Timeless love intrigues all your senses to relate with the characters, love and hate them at the same time as they evolve and go through love, disappointments, betrayal, revenge, sadness, and new beginnings.
And only you and I will know that my son's real father is Rafael.
But Rafael is already dead. And Matias must always believe that your son is Hieronymus.
When my pregnancy becomes obvious, then people will think it's a product of our love.
It's not a product of our love. It's from that imbecile Hieronimo. And I'm hiding the truth for you.
Don't miss any of the episodes of Timeless Love, showing from Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m. and repeated every weekday at 10 a.m.
You put happiness back into my life.
What changed? Why do you act like this? What did I do to you?
Timeless Love is proudly brought to you by Gino, My Dear Rice, Amalina Children's Haven, Oba Spaghetti, Frito, New Life Cream, Magico, Vivo, and Gandol Cosmetics.
GH1 TV, your best experience.
Good to have you here. Interesting conversation between Shamima Muslim, Al-Hassan, Zakaria, Tanko, Musah, and Beswa Dona Hammond on the Breakfast Review. It's now time for us to talk gender, to talk women, to talk empowerment. And on Hard Talk, we'll be having that conversation. Remember, the WhatsApp number is 0557 207 351. Hard Talk begins right now. On Thursday, the 8th of March, the world celebrates International Women's Day. How will Ghana be marking this particular day, and how important is this celebration of women to us here in Ghana? My guest is the Honorable Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. She has been a very vocal advocate on issues of empowerment of women finding their rightful place as far as development is concerned. The Honorable Minister for Gender, Otiko Afisa Jaba. Good morning.
Good morning, Kafwe.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you, and a good morning to all Ghanaians today.
Indeed. So today is the 5th, and means we are 3 days away from an International Women's Day. How significant is this celebration for the people of Ghana?
It's triply significant because March is our month for independence as a country, getting to 61 years on. So we will be reflected on our various achievements and challenges and the way forward in all sectors of our lives. And then, especially for women, on the 8th of March is the International Women's Day, celebrated globally since the 20th century. Now it has come to stay that every 8th March we celebrate the International Women's Day. The theme for this year is about the time is now for rural and urban activism, to be able to ensure that there is gender equality using rural and urban activism amongst women. And we in Ghana have domesticated it to women to progress, press for progress to develop Ghana. Hashtag women to press for progress to develop Ghana.
Okay.
And we've embarked on a series of activities that I'll be telling you about.
Okay, so women to press for progress, progress to development, to develop Ghana. Break down for us. Haven't women been pressing for the development of Ghana? You are more than us.
We are.
And you work hard.
We are. I always say that over half the population of Ghana is women. And the rest of the population is also born by women. Unfortunately, because we live in a male-dominant society with laws that are male-domineering, structures that are male-domineering, it's made it difficult for the women to be able to fulfill their full potential. And so that's why there was the need globally for the SDG goals to have goal 5 that talks about gender equity and equality. And so even though we have evolved, some time back women didn't even vote, they didn't go to school, it was a woman's lot to just get married and have babies and all of that. But now women can multitask. You have our Chief Justice is a woman. We have the first ever Chief of Staff as a woman, and there are several instances of women in leadership. And in Parliament, from the time that our President Kwame Nkrumah had a form of affirmative action that brought in 10 women, for the first time in the history of Ghana, we have 37 women in Parliament. That is a record, but it's woefully inadequate when you look at the numbers of 275 and knowing that the population of women is more. So there's still a lot more to be done. And that is why we are calling it hashtag women to press for progress for the development of Ghana, because we do so much in the development of Ghana, but it is not recognized fully by our sons and even by our daughters. And so we are organizing media storms where various women's activists will be in the media, radio, television, online, and what have you, to discuss these very issues. We organized a launch at the Ministry of Information to herald in all these activities last week. And then we had a fun and games, football of children and mothers, prison officers and wives of prison officers, and the staff of Ministry of Gender, and the children from a school in Mamubi were part of the celebration on Saturday. We had a debate on Friday, Laboni Secondary, talking about behind every successful man is a woman. Where is the man behind the successful woman? And that was a debate, and it was well participated in. and then we'll be organizing a massive walk, Women to Walk, from Obrasport on the 7th to Independence Square, where we'll have a mammoth rally to celebrate women, look at our issues, and how we can form a sisterhood, a movement that will take the women of Ghana to the next level as game changers of this great country. Then our First Lady on the 8th is organizing a panel discussion of various women's activists to also come and talk about the same issues. Okay. And then on the 9th, we'll crown it up with a very nice dinner dance extravaganza to raise funds for our project Operation Get Off the Street Now, to enable us to get all these various people who are on the street, off the streets, into the various places that they need to be in. The streets are no place for anybody. So we have a very long and interesting,
a very packed program. Yeah. A lot of gems that are on mind from what you just said. But in case you just joined us, my guest is the Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection, Otiko Afisa Jaba. She is speaking about issues to do with bridging the inequality gap and issues of empowering women, not just the women in the urban areas, but those especially in the rural areas. And if you have any questions you want to ask her about issues of gender in Ghana, the WhatsApp number is 0557-207-351. This is our conversation as we lead up to International Women's Day, which is on Thursday, the 8th of March, celebrated all around the world, and Ghana is definitely no exception. Let me just pick on the last thing you said about getting the streets not being a place for people. There's been some conversation around the begging. We know that by Ghana's laws, begging is indeed illegal.
Against the law,
Yes, and I've heard conversations where people say, but you could be meeting Jesus on the streets, who is coming in as a beggar, and why are we criminal? Why is begging being criminalized? It's not you criminalizing; it's on our statute books already, and you are just seeking for enforcement. How is this going to help women?
What it is that, one, our children are on the streets during school hours when they should be in school. Some have to push the persons with disability or help them to go about begging instead of being in school. That also is a crime. Those children must be in school. You see families at the corner, especially foreigners, and they also let their children come. You can see that they are light-skinned, a lot of them from Somalia, Niger, Chad, and all of that. Also, teaching their children to beg. When you teach a child to beg, is he going to be a beggar for the rest of his or her life? It's not a good place to put anybody.
What are your challenges with enforcing this rule?
The challenges are that people in Ghana feel that it's okay to give to people who are begging. But we are saying that encourages them. And so we've already begun the mapping to develop the database. We've looked for the shelters. Not all of them can take all of them. And then we are looking at a process of reintegrating where those who have homes and families to go to, we can look at the home situation, look at the person's situation, and see whether we cannot reintegrate some of them. The SHS schools will be open again in academic year September. Can we not send some of them back to school? In 2016, there was a pilot in Ashama where about a little over 147 children on the streets in Ashama were sent back to school. And so it's important that Ghana, now that we're getting to 61 years, we clear our streets off people. Streets are for vehicles. Wherever you go in the world, in developed countries, do you see people begging on the streets? If you see them, they are very few.
We're not developed yet.
But Ghana is the pride of Africa. We aim for the sky. We want to be developed. We have to do things properly. Some of them will be hard decisions, but to develop a nation has never been easy. And people died for us to be free. And to be truly free, we have to be disciplined and do the things like getting every child of school-going age in school. The young ones who are doing selling of ice water, chips and all those newspapers, they could be trained in a skill. And so we have skills training programs, and we can link them up with small cottage industries and small enterprises through the Maslock funds, through the One District, One Factory. There are all sorts of opportunities. The danger is that on the streets, you can get hit by a car, break a limb, you can die. You can get involved in drug abuse, in armed robbery. The streets are just not the place.
Which institutions is the Gender Ministry collaborating with to make sure this becomes a reality and not just talk?
We have set up a task force of various CSOs, as well as members from the academia, and then, of course, the social welfare, local government service. They're all part of what we're doing.
No police?
Of course, we cannot do it without the police. The Ministry of Interior, they have their reps. The Attorney General's office, they have their reps. Ministry of Chieftaincy, they also have their reps. Because, you see, this is a collective program, responsibility. The Ministry of Gender cannot do it alone. The media are also part of it to ensure that we have representatives from each sector that will enable us to enforce it.
Has the task force started working? Has it started working?
Yes, they've started. We inaugurated the technical committee. We're now going to take it down to the assemblies so that they will understand, because they are an important part of what we're doing, so that when the data collection is over, you will know who is to be where. You see,
but they've not hit the streets yet and started taking people off?
No. What they've started is the data collection, the mapping, to know the numbers of how many are children, how many are boys and girls, how many are above 18, how many have homes to go to, how many are foreigners, how many are persons with disability, what type of disability, the people who are over 18, do they have homes to go back to? There's another area, the Kayaye. So we've singled out the Kayaye as well to do a mapping specifically on the Kayaye across the country. It's a nationwide program. So it's not something that you can wave a magic wand and finish today.
Who's funding it though?
Oh, we're doing it in collaboration with the UNFPA, with UNICEF, and we are asking private, that's why we're doing the fundraising, the private sector to also come in to enable us to support the shelters better. To this, Father Campbell is also part of what we're doing. Various CSOs are involved. This is a very important area. It is an indicator for as long as there are people begging on the street or selling on the street that all is not well. And so we need to get it right by getting them off into areas that their full potential will be realized.
Indeed. What do you reckon is the biggest challenge to empowering women and reducing the inequality gap?
Education. Education, education, education. Formal education that every girl child must be in school. Stay in school, not get pregnant, not drop out of school, and get to whatever level. Everybody has a mother or a sister. And let me ask you, which educated woman will not let her sons and daughters go to school? That's why Agri said that. When you educate a man, you only educate an individual. But when you educate a woman, her whole family, her community, the whole nation becomes educated.
It's almost as if you were planning the show with us, because that was our quote of the day for today. Agri's quote was our quote for the day.
Agri's quote will be with us forever, because it is the truth. And it is important that women are not only formally educated, but the sensitization of socialization of our children to ensure that the girl child and the boy child are brought up equally. Because of the negative and harmful traditions that we have in our society, that the male is the leader. You, as a girl child, you are brought up to serve your father, to look after your young sisters and brothers, to do the cooking. The woman, for a long time, was only limited to cooking, childbearing, and household chores.
So are you following that pepper them, sugar them debate?
Oh no, I can't be part of any of that. I am the mother of the vulnerable. This is the Ministry of Gender. We have to look at diversity. Each group of women has a specific role to play, and they will have to do that to support what we do.
But you're following them, at least, without taking a side.
I've actually asked my director for gender to invite both groups to my office and to involve them in all these programs that we're doing. That they are market women. They are a young girl, 13, for the first time in the history of Ghana, is now a student at KNUST studying engineering. You have a group of young ladies who are maths teachers at Ekumfi. They are in the business of training young children, especially in the JHS, to like maths, young girls. And so we're going to link up with them. We have a very great mentoring program that we will link up with women leaders to be able to organize boot camps, set up girls' leadership clubs in the school with Ministry of Education and children's rights clubs. It's an exciting time for the ministry because we have good laws. We have the Children's Act, we have the gender policy, we have the ending child marriage, we have the Disability Act, we are in the process of reviewing it, we have the affirmative action. So many laws.
Is this something for FGM as well? I know you're very passionate about the fight against FGM.
Ending FGM is part of it. Ending domestic violence, defilement, rape, and all of that. And so, we in the ministry are reviewing our policies to meet Ghana 61 years on. And it's important that all of us as a people are involved so that we can get it right.
And finally, what would you say to the cynics who are listening to you and they say, look, you are fighting an impossible fight against religion, against culture. Women have been talking about empowerment and equity issues since Beijing, even before Beijing.
Yes.
You are talking, and if there were to be action and results, we should have seen it by now. What is your response to people with those viewpoints?
My response is that the time is now. We have come far. Once upon a time, even suffrage for women to vote, yes. It took a lot of women burning their bras and all of that for universal suffrage to occur. For a girl to go to school, it took a long time before it became part of the law. For women to be leaders in our society, a woman to be an MP, a woman to be the chief of staff, a woman to be Chief Justice, a woman, Anna Bosman, Shiraj, a woman in the army in terms of the hierarchy at the highest level, a woman to be a pilot. We have come a long way, but the gap is still big. And that is why women too are pressing for progress. And so my answer is that everybody has a mother. It's your mother who teaches you how to sweep, how to be a responsible adult. That means she was leading you from birth. Unfortunately, the culture, as soon as the child is 16 and it's a boy, becomes the man of the house. But increasingly, we are having women who are leaders of their households. And it is not a competition. It is that we should complement each other, men and women, boys and girls, to be able to reach our developmental agenda. We talk of numbers and equity. In democracy, it's about numbers. In the rule of law, it's about numbers. And so if women are more than men, ideally, then we should have more women in parliament. We should have more women in leadership roles.
Like in Rwanda.
Yes. Yeah. In Rwanda, they have about 68%, or between 64 and 68%. They have the highest number of women in parliament, and they have a women's chamber of commerce. They've done a lot of work. And so we learn from the best practices of other countries. And the time has come for Ghana as well to look at all these issues that are still holding women back in terms of unpaid work. A lot of women are carers in the home, care for sick children, sick husbands, sick fathers, and all of that. But nobody pays them. We say that women are the engine of growth because 80% of women are in small, medium-scale enterprises, but they are not well paid. When I went for the cocoa program, they said to me, when it comes to clearing the farms, the women are involved. When it comes to sowing, spraying, and all of that, women are involved. But when it comes to the money, then the men are the ones who go for the money, and they don't want the women to even know. But money is a source of power. And so it's important that there should be equity in all these areas. In planting for food and jobs, we are writing that there is the need for all appointments of a minimum of 30%. The Affirmative Action Bill, by the grace of God, we've been able to review it, and we've taken it to Cabinet. We'll be looking at it, get Cabinet approval, and send it to Parliament to ensure that in all spheres there is gender mainstreaming, there is gender responsive budgeting, there is equity and equality for equal opportunity, so that as we celebrate Ghana's independence at 61, women should feel that we have come of age, we have reached a level that we are happy to work side by side. But women are not as happy as they should be.
Indeed.
And we would hope that 61 will be a magic number for the whole of Ghana, because gender is not a women's issue.
Indeed. It's for
gender is a national
issue.
issue.
He for she, men, women,
yes.
everybody.
And until we accelerate the development of women, Ghana will always be marking time and running, as I always said, like a man with one leg. The time has come to untie the legs of both the men and the women, persons with disability, children, everybody is involved, so that we can right the wrongs of the past and bridge the gap between men and women, so that Ghana can indeed be the jewel of Africa, the pride of Africa, with Ghanaian men and women feeling patriotic and committed, all going to school, achieving their dreams, and we have a happy and prosperous Ghana. I think that we are blessed enough, and the men are magnanimous enough that you have had a good time so far. The time has come to give a helping hand to your daughters and wives and what have you, so that we go together properly.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. You seem to be enjoying the job. What's the toughest thing about it as we wrap up now? Toughest thing about being gender minister?
The toughest thing is that it's a human institution. We don't build roads, so you cannot see the process of building a person. You see people on the streets, you're asking me, when are we going to get them off? With people, you can't just go and pull them off.
Takes time.
You have to mentally, there should be a paradigm shift in their minds, engagement about how you can change their lives. Even women, getting women in school, you need to talk to chiefs, you need to talk to men, you need to talk to women. In some places, boys are not allowed to fetch water.
Yeah.
It's a taboo for them to sweep or cook.
So you're fighting a lot of human
yes,
things. Yeah.
So, but this is what I was born for. All my life, I've been a development worker. That's my daytime job, from Kokroko to Tumu to women's organizer. It's how we can build our people and give people hope. So the ministry is in the business of changing lives and giving hope. And hope is a good place. And so every day I wake up, I think of how I can put a smile to somebody's face, to smile into somebody's life.
Thank you.
And you get a lot of calls. But we have a helpline. The helpline of hope is what we call it. And it's 0800 800 800. And the other number is 0800 900 900. And so you can call. And then somebody will respond to you.
We'll publicize it. Thank you so much. The Honorable Minister for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Very busy schedule, but she could make time with us. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day and happy International Women's Day.
And I wish all women and men a happy International Women's Day. Everybody should get involved.
Thank you.
Don't miss out.
Thank you so much. And that's a GH Today on GH1 TV. We are going for our traffic check right now on GH1 TV. Stay with us. Okay, so after that interesting information on gender issues, let's talk traffic check right now on GH Today. Where exactly is this that we can show you? This has to be Accra, a Ring Road Central. Of course, it's always like this around this time of the day. And now we are moving to another part of the capital. And this is the Tema Harbour area. And it's quite a very interesting, slow-moving traffic. So if you're taking decisions this morning, if you live in Community 3 or Community 1, wherever, you need to know what the situation is like in that part of the Greater Accra region. Okay, so we are now moving to another part of the capital. And this is the Tetekwashi interchange area. You can see it's gridlocked almost on every side, except the part that takes you to and from Tema. So take your decisions if you're not in it. If you're in it already, I'm sorry, but if you're not in it, you know what to do. Now we're moving to another part of the capital. This looks like airport residential area. This is the airport residential area for the traffic check this morning, second edition this morning. And so, yeah, that's the traffic situation there for you. And that's it. That's your traffic check this morning, the 5th of March, 2018. Okay, so as we count down to the International Women's Day, let's get some music from Becca. And this is African Woman as we celebrate women all around the world. Enjoy.
Whoa.